Welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We have got stars galore. We've got a huge show this morning. And Caroline, speaking of stars galore, we start with the night that was absolutely epic, living up to every ounce of the hype. The videos on social media of fans just trying to get into Madison Square Garden and then watching the opening player introductions and thinking, oh my God, how will San Antonio survive it? Well, update. They did. They went into Madison Square Garden in a game that they absolutely had to have, and they get the 115-111 electric win. San Antonio has made this a game, a series, I should say, Caroline, and I'm still stunned that this young roster went into that environment and said, we're fine, and found a way to win.
I think in theory, when your superstar is 22 years old, when you have Stephon Castle in year number 2 and Dylan Harper in year number 1, when your team is as young as the Spurs are, right? The environment that was last night, a sold out crowd, a star-studded crowd, the president in town. You had to get there several hours before tip just to go through TSA level security. That should be too much for a team that young and that inexperienced. But that's just kind of what makes this Spurs team different. We all expected, at least I expected, a Spurs bounce back in game 2 because that's just kind of how Wemby is wired. That's just kind of how this Spurs team has gone. We saw that in the Western Conference Finals. Every time they zigged, they zagged. Every time the Spurs had a rough game, Wemby had not a great game, they would come back with the thunder of the gods. And when they didn't in game 2, I thought, uh-oh, the Spurs are in trouble going to 0-2, going to MSG. This feels incredibly uncomfortable for Wemby and company. But the Spurs, it feels like, when the pressure is ratcheted up the most, when the moment is its biggest, it's almost like they play their best basketball. I mean, Wemby even said it, down 0-2 is exactly where they want to be. I didn't think that was posturing. I didn't think that was coach speak. I didn't think that was just trying to make a headline. I genuinely believe Victor Wembanyama when he says that, because it's just wired differently, because he's got a little bit of a screw loose and he's kind of cuckoo like that. So maybe we should have been surprised for the moment not being too big for the Spurs, but I do genuinely believe that's exactly where they wanted to be, and that was the Victor Wembanyama that we've all been waiting to see in this final series. I mean, he was excellent. 32 points last night, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. He did a little bit of everything last night, including being Superman. We knew the Spurs could not win this series without Victor Wembanyama stepping up and being the Superman that he has to be, at least for a handful of games if the Spurs wanted to win a championship. And we haven't seen Wemby be Superman. In fact, we've seen Wemby make so many uncharacteristic mistakes, turning the ball over at the end of game 1, throwing the ball to Stephon Castle's back at the end of game 2, when they really had that game 1, but the Knicks just went in there and took it. We saw Victor Wembanyama bounce back and be the player that we've been wanting to see him be for the entirety of this series. And we saw it last night at MSG in an epic game.
I think the fact that this is an epic ending to an epic game is all the more reason I'm stepping back now and saying, what could the Spurs have unlocked? Because hear me out. You're talking about a team, to your point, that has sort of melted down in the last couple of minutes of each of the first 2 games. The Spurs had chances to win the first 2 games. They just found a way to lose them. And everybody watching this game for game 3, you thought the same thing. When the Spurs went up big and then all of a sudden the Knicks clap back, the Knicks come into the half with a lead, you think, oh man, the Spurs just don't have it. When we get late into this game and all of a sudden it's a 3-point game yet again, we're looking around saying, man, this is what the Knicks do. The Knicks hadn't lost in 46 days. Belief is a drug,
Crazy.
Right? So you're talking about a team that hadn't lost in 6 weeks, that had found weird ways to win constantly, and a Knicks team that frankly didn't have their best night in some ways, and they're still in this thing late in the game. I think the fact that this young Spurs team not only won the game in the Garden, but won a close game in the Garden where the Knicks did clap back, where it was up and down. All of the things that the Spurs sort of had to survive, even late in the game when it felt like they couldn't hit a bucket anywhere. I was watching the Spurs thinking, here we go again. The fact that they won in that style eliminates the here we go again. The fact that they won in that style eliminates the sort of subconscious or back in your mind moment where we're all thinking the Knicks are just going to do what the Knicks do. Brunson's just going to make some miraculous shot. All of a sudden, Spurs are going to lose again. Belief is such an important part of all of this. So that's why we talk about young teams having to grow up and having to go through things to finally figure out how to win. I think last night was the first time that we've seen the Spurs figure out how to win a finals game where they had to get a bucket late. For a young team to do that in the Garden, to me, it unlocks this sort of belief, and it puts a little bit of the water on the fire of what the Knicks have been for the last 6 weeks to everybody. I think this series is reinvented now. This series is wildly different because the Spurs just learned we can win a close game. We can win a close game in the Garden. We can win a close game in the Garden where everybody's there 2 hours early because they had to be because of security protocol, and the whole arena is just ripping loud. We just won a game where announcers who've been around the NBA their entire lives after the opening intro said, I got goosebumps. They did that. To me, that just changes the entire trajectory. Right now, moving forward, this can be a different series for San Antonio.
Well, I mean, statistically, the Knicks are the best fourth quarter team ever in the history of the league. So for San Antonio to win this game, find a way to win a close game, to your point, in the Garden, where there was more hype for this game than maybe any other sporting event in the history of New York sports. Like, we can seriously have that debate and that argument. For them to do that is all of a sudden like, we can do anything. Why not? We were down 0-2, but going into game 4 down 2-1, that feels a lot more palatable. Escaping the absolute devastation that would have been going down 0-3, like all of a sudden you start to feel a little bit of belief. And it wasn't just what Wemby did. It wasn't just what Stephon Castle did last night. I mean, like, he was a jack of all trades last night. 23 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, had a steal, had a block. You know, he was just, his impact, it felt like, was felt on the court really all night long. Even if it didn't necessarily show up on a gaudy stat line, Stephon Castle did a little bit of everything. So it was what he was able to do. It was what Dylan Harper was able to do, just to create production on the court. Did anyone have a gaudy stat line outside of Victor Wembanyama? Not really. Stephon Castle would be the only one, but everyone just did their job. Everyone did their role, and everyone stepped up in a little bit of a way. And in the NBA Finals, all you need to do is just produce. It wasn't just what San Antonio did, but I think it was also what the Knicks didn't do. Where was Mikal Bridges? I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, after the first 2 games, I said would have been finals MVP. If the finals ended after game 2, Cat would have been MVP. He was kind of a no-show. Mikal Bridges was kind of a no-show. Landry Shamet, who's really stepped up big in the postseason, he had 3 points in 23 minutes off the bench. It just felt like all of those pieces that had clicked for the Knicks, highlighted by Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. There were so many times in that game last night that I kind of looked around and thought, where did they go?
And to that point, Jalen Brunson right now in this series has as many turnovers, 13, as assists, 13 in this series. He's only shooting 37% from the field. He does have 82 points, but it's on 81 shots. Efficiency is gone. This offense for the Knicks has worked the best when they've had a ton of movement. They're making you run all over the place. The ball's going all over the place. As was pointed out this morning by Jay Will, I want to give him credit for it. There were 13 different possessions where Jalen Brunson was the only Knick that even touched the basketball in the entirety of the possession. That's not the way this offense has clicked in the postseason. I think that has to be part of this conversation. San Antonio is being physical, out of their minds with Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
And at times, I think Jalen Brunson is turning around saying, okay, I'm going to figure out how to generate points because we need it. And I understand he's doing what his team needs to try and win, but it's not the method to winning basketball. And when we talk about that physicality, I mean, be careful what you wish for. Mike Brown, after the game, had plenty to say about the officiating post-game. His quote was, I never thought I'd be in the NBA Finals and see a team get 24 free throw attempts in the second half to another team's 8. Complaining about the officiating. This was a wildly physical game. Wildly physical. And we all saw it. We saw it, in fact, there's some great replays out there, some of the plays that didn't even get calls, that were just absolutely people off the ball being manhandled. They are playing physical basketball. Certainly Mike Brown is trying to send a message to the refs. But Caroline, I caution him, if we really want the refs to get tight, if your answer here is to call the game tighter, I don't know that I want that when I'm taking on Wemby. Because Wemby could get fouled on literally every single play.
But that's a flagrant foul. Like it's one thing to be like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't want the refs to swallow their whistle. You don't want the refs to call everything, but you need the refs to call that. That was so
Agreed.
clear and so obvious. And they called it out in the broadcast. They said the refs just didn't see it. I'm sorry. That's unacceptable. And we've talked a lot about the emotion of Wemby. It's what makes him great, but it could also potentially be his downfall. He got really freaking lucky that the refs didn't see that last night, because that was ridiculous and unacceptable. Now, to Mike Brown's point, if you didn't see Mike Brown's clip, you know, you might say, you know, he's complaining about the refs, that's weak. I get it. Mike Brown acknowledged that the Spurs were the better team last night. And Mike Brown pointed out that they did not lose the game last night because of the officiating. But officiating was a problem. I think that both things can be true. I think we can all agree that the Knicks didn't lose the game last night because of the officiating, but the officiating was still really bad. That was a blatantly not called flagrant foul. I thought the flagrant on Brunson, when he kind of turned his back, was it Champagnie? Was Champagnie the shooter? When he kind of turned his back on Champagnie, I thought that was a ridiculous call. You know, the Stephon Castle shove on Jalen Brunson, I saw a lot of fodder on social media last night. Everyone was kind of split. I didn't think that that was a flagrant, but there were so many points in the game last night that it just felt inconsistent and lopsided. My only, you know, gripe with officiating is just be consistent. If you're going to call it for the entirety of 48 minutes. If you're going to swallow your whistle and you're going to let him play all 4 quarters. But it was an inconsistently called game last night. Not why the Knicks lost, but you don't want to, I don't want to talk about the refs on Tuesday morning after an epic game on Monday night, but unfortunately, here we are.
Yeah, and I think, look, if you look at the total fouls called, it was 21 fouls called on San Antonio. It was 23 called on the Knicks. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that they got in the bonus so fast in the second half, and the refs, it felt like in the second half, were calling the game much different than they called it in the first half. I don't love that. I think you're asking players to adjust on the fly. I think we're right. All of these things are right, and you're right. They absolutely missed that foul that clearly should have been a foul on Brunson. I also think, though, when you look back at these numbers, OG Anunoby was hit with 2 personal fouls. Karl-Anthony Towns was hit with 4. When you send a message at the podium of, I want the officials to do a better job of calling fouls, what you are taking the risk of is in the next game, they're just going to have bigger eyes for everything. They're going to try and call the game tighter from the outset. You know what? We're going to call this whole thing. And if you do that, you're going to need more depth in everybody that's taken on Wemby. Because the way that Wemby forces you to defend him, he can force fouls every single play on every single thing that he does. Sometimes you just got to let him play. I do agree with you. The Brunson call was a missed call. And also, I think part of what we're seeing is a real physicality from the Spurs. The joke was made that, you know, at this point, I think Ant and SGA and Brunson would like to have a group text to talk to each other about just how much physicality they've all been greeted with. This is who the Spurs are. The Spurs knocked the you-know-what out of you over and over and over again. The more aggressive team in each of these games has won. So I expect to see both of these teams come out playing with that same level of physicality. I just think that, you know, Knicks fans, if you want the game called tighter, you want it consistently called tighter, I think what you're not acknowledging is the risk you're taking, that you're taking on a freak in Victor Wembanyama that can create fouls on every single play. So also you see it there. So much for home court advantage during the NBA Finals, 0-3, but that goes throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Home court advantage is dead. If even Madison Square Garden can't create a home court advantage for the Knicks to win, it's dead. We have plenty more NBA to break down over the course of the morning. We're going to get into plenty more angles of this, as it was an absolute epic final. But coming up next, a story that absolutely rocked college football yesterday, the latest on Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech.
What about the pre-fight talk? Do you feel like there should be a line?
I mean, can we look at it like comedy? I think that would be
You
awesome.
think that would be better? Even
well,
if you're
I
talking
think
about
if
moms and stuff.
I mean, that sucks if someone did, you know? Like,
yeah, okay.
I think, like, building up to it, like, if you and I were standing across from each other and we were going to fight, you'd probably say a bunch of stuff you really don't mean. You kind of let it go after 5 rounds in a ring with someone.
I mean, yeah, everyone loves to bring up all the pressure and tell me about the pressure. And I'm used to it. Like, I've lived like this for quite some time now. For me, I just try to do my best to live in the moment. I wouldn't trade what I do for the world, so this is exactly where I want to be, and I just try to take it head on and enjoy every experience. I got a wonderful team and family behind me, and that's all that really matters.
What did you learn about LeBron when you were out there on the golf course with him?
I learned he's just like the rest of us out on the golf course. He loves the game. He caught the bug somewhere along the line, and just like all of us, all he wants to do is play golf. I think Bronny's probably a little ahead of him in his game, and I think that's probably messing with him a little bit. I think he can't wait to maybe even the playing field there. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about equipment. He's just like every other guy, kind of working all week to be able to play golf on the weekend.
Orlando, one timeout left, but the game comes down to this right here. 4 feet away from the goal line in the win. It's DeLore to throw, near side, pass caught over the wall.
That's a touchdown.
He caught it over the wall.
Touchdown from
Touchdown, Orlando. A walk-off win. As dramatic of a finish as you will ever find, and a walk-off for the Pirates.
Wow, what a finish in Orlando.
Ross Dellinger tweets out, Big 12 ADs tell Yahoo Sports they've had serious talks on not playing Texas Tech. One SEC AD says there should be conversations about not playing Tech in any sports. The Brendan Sorsby ruling has left an industry jarred. Quote, it's total effing BS. That is a paraphrased quote, as everybody seems to be shell-shocked. There's more developments from this, too. We've seen since then, Georgia's athletic director has sent a note out. I believe Nebraska's also has telling all of their teams in every single sport to not schedule Texas Tech and to consider taking them off the schedule if it's already been scheduled. This is all fallout from a court ruling by a judge that has decided to grant an emergency injunction that will allow Brendan Sorsby to play this season. He will be suspended the first 2 games. That's being appealed by the NCAA. There's still a lot of legalese going on here, Caroline, but let's just start with what I think is the most important part of this that you and I will agree on. I know you well enough to know you and I will agree on. Whataboutism has got to die right now. Like every single person that's like, yeah, but what about all of the players that have beaten their girlfriends? What about all the players that are out here in their cars speeding? What about all the players that have committed crime? You know what? The goal in life is not to go to the lowest common denominator. The goal in life is not to say, well, you let him get away with that, so why can't I? Like, that's not how we work, right? So I just want to address that we as a show condemn all of these things that are illegal that are being done by college football. I can't believe we have to say that, but like the answer is not let's allow more abusive, murdering, cheating scandals to happen. The answer is to rise everything, not to lower everything. Caroline, I feel like we have to make that clear.
It's all bad. If you sexually assaulted someone, that's wrong, and that's bad, and you deserve to not play college football anymore. If you drove drunk, that's bad and against the law, and you deserve to not play college football anymore. If you bet on your own team, which is against the rules in the NCAA, that's bad, and you deserve to not play college football anymore. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Just because one thing is wrong doesn't make the other thing less wrong or more wrong or not wrong at all. They're all wrong. Like, these things are not mutually exclusive. To hear Cody Campbell, because you just mentioned the Georgia athletic director and, the statement that he released. Cody Campbell, who is the big donor from Texas Tech, the big oil tycoon billionaire who's essentially been funding all of Texas Tech athletics. Brendan Sorsby, Nashry Kennedy, the softball pitcher, you name it, they're probably getting checks signed by Cody Campbell. Cody Campbell responded and said, oh, well, what about all those Georgia football players and their traffic violations? How dare you? How dare you with the whataboutisms? Because those are bad and those are wrong too. But what that doesn't do is blatantly violate clear black and white rules listed by the NCAA that questions the integrity of the sport. It's bad. It's against the law. And we have said so many times on this show how Georgia football has a clear and obvious cultural problem that needs to be fixed because somebody, yet again, will unfortunately lose their lives if they continue to do those things. That is wrong and that is bad. What Brendan Sorsby did is wrong and bad. Like, both things can be wrong and bad and should be reprimanded by law and by the NCAA. So I don't want to hear everyone clutching their pearls, and I don't want to bring out the history books of all of the bad and wrong things that have happened in the history of college sports, because I just want to focus on this right now and how wrong and bad this is, and how scary it feels of a precedent that this is setting, and how it feels like the Brendan Sorsby injunction that he was granted opens up Pandora's box, and how this can now create, a gray area for all rules that get broken in the future. That if you want to go back to college football, why not? And the rules say you can't, but everyone has shown that if you just take it to court, then you can just trump the NCAA, and what the NCAA rules are don't matter. That's a really scary and slippery slope. So yes, there's a lot of bad people who have done bad things, or even good people who have done bad things in the history of college sports. That does not overshadow what the Brendan Sorsby injunction has done, and that does not undo the rules that Brendan Sorsby broke that have gotten him to this position.
It bothers me because so much of this conversation has been about the fact that he's in rehab. Okay, well, so does that excuse everything from now on? Great. You get a DUI, you just go to rehab, and that's fine. Now you're suddenly we can't punish you at all for what you've done. This goes further and further and further down the line. Like, does Brandon Sorsby need help? Yes. Is he getting that help? Yes. Does action have consequence? Yes. And the issue that I have, one of the many issues I have in this entire process, are how many people are turning around and they're changing and they're moving the goalposts on who the victim is here. The victim here is Brandon Sorsby. It's not Texas Tech. Like, nobody's punishing Texas Tech here. Texas Tech is getting the conversation around Texas Tech is if you let this player play, because the player shouldn't be allowed to play by the actual rules that are in the bylaws, the actual rules that are in black and white. So if Texas Tech chooses to let him play, then they become sort of collateral damage. The real victim here is Brendan Sorsby, and he did it to himself. So yeah, action has consequence. When you place tens of thousands of dollars with the bets against every single rule, action has consequence. What about the players that we've seen that have lost their entire careers for far lesser offenses within this one rule? We're talking about this one rule, not everything else. I'm looking at it saying consistently, the NCAA has always said the same thing. You bet on games, you don't get to play. It's that easy. He bet on games. You shouldn't get to play. This has nothing to do with whether or not Texas Tech is going to be good this year. Has nothing to do with how much money Brendan Sorsby is going to make. I don't care if Brendan Sorsby has a different name playing for a different team. He broke a very clear rule. And now all of a sudden a judge says, well, it would cause irreparable harm to his life, so we're going to wait on the trial, which, by the way, isn't even scheduled until after the football season. So Sorsby can go out, play the whole year, and all of a sudden the NCAA loses all their teeth. We saw former NFL players turning around saying, do I have any college? And like Honey Badger was out here saying, can I get back into the college football game, right? Like, to your point, Caroline, if all rules are just wild, wild west, then let's go. And now everybody says, well, this is why we need Congress. And that's where you mentioned some of the boosters, some of the very boosters that are coming out now saying, oh, man, well, don't look at me. Those are the same boosters that have been paying lobbyists to try and get Congress to do what they want for the last couple of years. Like, the conflict of interest all over the place is everywhere. So to come in and say, well, Congress is going to fix it, Congress is trying. And the Big Ten and the SEC didn't even like that. Like, this is all mind-blowing to me on something so simple. Sorsby broke a rule that is very clearly written. He's now not going to pay the punishment for that rule because we need Congress to step in? Why? Like, there's a rule in black and white. Just follow the damn rule.
I pay no attention to the helmet behind me. I would be in favor of Tyrann Mathieu returning to college football, just for whatever that is worth. To your point, irreparable harm. That's legalese, right? We use that a lot as kind of a standard for certain cases. Duh. Like, that's kind of the point, right? Not that I want Brendan Sorsby's mental health or life or career to be irreparably harmed, but the consequences of your actions do harm, quote unquote, harm a person. But it's not harm that's being done to you in an unjust way. Those are just the consequences of your actions. If I drove drunk and I got pulled over by a police officer, which is what you should absolutely positively never do, call someone, call an Uber, leave your car there. It's not worth it. But if I got pulled over and I was driving drunk, and I told the police officer, no, you can't give me a DUI because that would do irreparable harm to my career, my life, and my reputation. What do you think the police officer would say? He would not say, "Oh my gosh, you were so right. I am so sorry. Please continue breaking the law and putting others at risk because I don't want to harm you and your livelihood." Now, these are two different examples, of course. What Brendan Sorsby did not put other people at risk or at harm. I do totally and completely understand that. But I do think it is as simple as that. As you broke a rule, whatever rule that may have been, whether you drove drunk, whether you drove too fast, or whether you bet on games that you were participating in. Like, it is just as simple as that. And the Congress side of things,
Well,
I keep hearing this as an excuse to push the agenda of Congress, but there are so many big dogs, big players, SEC, Big Ten, big time athletic directors, Greg Sankey himself, who have come out against the Protect College Sports Act. So you think that this is all of a sudden going to galvanize the biggest and most important people in college football who can't agree on anything? Of course not.
There's also, for every person that says the rule is stupid, there's a place and time to change that.
It's a rule,
and it's
though.
before you get caught breaking it. Like, if you get pulled over, to use your driving analogy, if you get pulled over going 60 in a 35, and you're like, well, the speed limit's stupid here. Okay, place and time to fight that's
Doesn't
probably
change what
not
it
after
is.
you got the driving ticket. So, like, I feel like all of the well, this is just a stupid rule. We can talk about that. Total separate conversation. Total separate conversation. If it's a stupid rule and we don't like it, then you have a whole different conversation about fixing that rule. But that conversation happens, I don't know, before you get caught breaking it. And now the question is what happens next? Because as we mentioned, Georgia, and I want to stress this, Georgia and Nebraska, the two teams that so far have come out and plainly said they won't schedule Texas Tech. They're not just talking about football. Their intent is to not schedule Texas Tech in any college sport of any sort. That is the one recourse that I do believe everybody could turn around and look at. Now, it gets complicated. Andy Staples and I got into a bit of a debate about this on social media last night. I do think that the Big 12 would be within their rights from their bylaws to turn around and say, okay, we just won't play Texas Tech. We'll do it now. We won't forfeit the games the week of. Everybody says, well, we'll just go. That would make Texas Tech undefeated. No, the Big 12 could decide at this point that they're not going to count those forfeits as losses. They could abandon all the games on the schedule, and that would create a legal battle, which, by the way, wouldn't be finished until after the football season. So you could delay all of this just by going to court on all of it. But I am interested to see how many schools turn around and say, fine, we won't play Texas Tech in softball. We won't play Texas Tech in golf. We won't play Texas Tech in basketball. We won't play Texas Tech in anything. And at some point, that's not about trying to punish Texas Tech. It's about trying to send a message. We don't believe Brendan Sorsby should have the right to play. It's that simple. And if you can't get that rule enforced through the NCAA or through courts or through Congress, the one thing you can do as a group of schools is say, well, y'all may not appreciate it, but we're just not going to let it happen. We just won't do it. Will it create a legal fight? Yes. That legal fight would be years in negotiation before we got anywhere with it. And by then, the statement's already been made.
But my only concern about that is, and I do think that could be effective for non-conference opponents, and it's what we've seen with Notre Dame, right? USC was like, well, we play hard enough opponents in the Big Ten. We don't have to add Notre Dame to that schedule, so we're just not going to. But Notre Dame's not in a conference. Nobody is contractually obligated to play Notre Dame year in and year out. There are teams in the Big 12 that are obligated to play Texas Tech. So it's fine for Nebraska in the Big Ten and Georgia in the SEC to say we're not going to schedule Texas Tech in anything. But what kind of pushback does the Big 12 have against Texas Tech? Because then, Scarbini State and whoever else can be on Texas Tech's schedule because they can get a multi-million-dollar payout doing so. And Texas Tech can fill the rest of their schedule with conference opponents. So I don't know how effective that can be, because if conference opponents don't want to schedule Texas Tech, then would you just forfeit those games? No team's going to do that.
That's where the bylaws of the Big 12, at least from what I've been able to read, seem to give them the opportunity to at least look at this. I think lawyers would disagree on whether or not those games have to be forfeited or whether they can be eliminated during the summer. Again, it would create a tremendous legal battle, but that legal battle wouldn't be solved until long after the NFL season. So you could take one legal battle that won't be solved until after or college football season, I should say. You can take one legal battle and you can match it with the next. The battle's not going to go anywhere. The conversation will keep raging on. We'll keep you updated because the NCAA has already appealed. So we'll see. They've asked for a quick hearing on this. We'll see what it means. In the meantime, what does it mean that the Braves are on fire? We'll ask an expert next.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the three, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Demond Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
Honestly, do you think you could have continued? Do you think if there was a minute left in the fight, you would have been okay? Meaning, sorry, a minute left in the round, not the end of the round.
So if you look back at it, I got the uppercut. No, for the people that know my fights, I've been dropped multiple times in different type of fights, in championship fights. And what I do is I get back up, and no matter how much time is left on the clock, I get back up and I end up winning.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
The Braves have played in 21 series so far this year. They've won 18 of them. Good Lord. Joining us now, CJ Nitkowski, color analyst of the Atlanta Braves. All right, CJ, give it to me. I don't think anybody thought the Braves were going to be this. Like, what has clicked to make them so hot so early?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's kind of a big picture question. A lot of people wonder about with this team and how have they done it so far. They're doing everything right. As far as when you look at your offense, what's going on with your starting pitching, your bullpen, they're playing really good defense. They run the bases well. They're very good in close games. They're really good with runners in scoring position. It seems like the big moments have always been ones that they've capitalized on. But I think probably the biggest thing that has been the most pleasant surprise here with the Atlanta Braves is how good the starting rotation has been. When you go back to the very beginning, when the season was about to start, at that point, the Braves had gone through 4 significant injuries to their starting rotation that started in the offseason and trickled throughout spring training, including Spencer Schwellenbach and Spencer Strider. Those were 2 really big ones. Joey Wentz was another, Hurston Waldrop, all guys that they expected to contribute or be pretty big parts of the rotation. The way that the starting rotation has recovered since then and how well that they have performed, Chris Sale is doing his thing. He is pitching to a Cy Young caliber season again. Bryce Elder in particular has really stepped up and has had an unbelievable season so far. That's probably been maybe the biggest part of what has happened here with the rotation. Others have done it as well, including Martin Perez, who goes tonight in Chicago for the Atlanta Braves. So there was a lot of things that were expected, how good the starting rotation has been, and the other guys that have filled in, probably the least expected, and that's been a really nice surprise for Walt Weiss.
CJ, as you know, the standard, not just in the NL, but in MLB, is the Dodgers. Everyone's chasing the Dodgers. What gives you confidence that this Braves team can compete with LA?
Yeah, I think they've already shown it this season, right? With the one series that they've had against the Dodgers, they'll come to Atlanta again here pretty soon. Listen, the Dodgers, we understand about payroll and how big it is and how deep they can run, but they also have dealt with pretty significant injuries. Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, everybody has to go through it, and they've done a nice job with the guys that have filled in so far. I think, the one thing with the Dodgers are an easy team to kind of jump on and look at their payroll, and you look at back-to-back World Series. They're a beatable team. They're a very good team. They deserve your respect, but they're a beatable team. If you go back and you look at the last 2 years that they won the World Series, they very easily could have lost that DS series that they had against the San Diego Padres that went to a Game 5. They had to throw a bullpen game. They did a really nice job. They go on and they win that World Series. And we all know what happened last year in Toronto. And for Blue Jays fans, they'll have to think about that forever. That felt like the Blue Jays had that. There was a couple of really key plays, including the one that happened with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa that very easily could have gone the other way for the Blue Jays. They're a good team. They're a juggernaut, but they're not unbeatable. And I think that certainly you have to bring your best every time you play the Los Angeles Dodgers. But right now, with the way that the Braves are playing, they run deep enough to hang with the Dodgers.
All right, so then walk me through it this way, because I'm not going to pretend to be a baseball aficionado, and you obviously are. So I always hear about how much different. We always see it in October. Playoff baseball is so much different. If the Braves took on the Dodgers today in a playoff series, do they have everything they need to actually win that series?
Yeah, and it's a good question, right? I think our sport, compared to all the other ones that you guys cover, is one of the rare ones where you could say teams are built for the regular season and built for the postseason, right? It's different, right? It's not one quarterback, it's not one point guard, it's not one main piece that you have to your puzzle, right? This is legitimately a team sport, and the way a series works is essentially you're starting out a starting quarterback throughout a postseason. It's a different guy every time, right? So your starting pitcher is the big one. The Braves run deep enough, and they expect to be deeper. Now, I mentioned Spencer Schwellenbach's name. Getting him back and having him available to the postseason would certainly put the Braves in an even better position. And what he has done at the big league level, he could pitch right at the top of the rotation against anybody. So if you have that really good version of Chris Sale, if you have Spencer Schwellenbach here in a postseason series and Spencer Strider and Bryce Elder, you can go up against anybody. And as good as that Dodgers lineup is, you sit there and you kind of dig in on it. They've had their issues, right? Other guys have stepped up and carried that lineup when others haven't been there, right? Mookie Betts isn't having the greatest of years. Kyle Tucker and all the money they spent on him is not having the greatest of years. Now, guys like Andy Pages and Max Muncy and Shohei Ohtani have all done really, really well. But this is not an unbeatable team. It's just a really, really good team. So as far as the Braves go, what they have in the starting rotation and what they have in the bullpen, and this bullpen has been absolutely dynamite so far this year. They're not intimidated by the Dodgers. They could absolutely beat the Dodgers, but this is baseball. Anything can happen on any day.
Brian Snitker steps back as the Braves manager last season. Walt Weiss takes over this year. What about Walt Weiss's DNA have you seen kind of change this Brave squad?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting to watch, right? I think a lot of people, when the offseason came, if you go back and you look at fans, they might have been a little bit disappointed that Walt Weiss got the job, and now they're absolutely in love with him and realize that Alex Anthopoulos and his group knew exactly what they were doing when they hired Walt Weiss. First things first, he had been here for 8 years as a bench coach, so he had already had the relationships built with the majority of this roster. It's really important. You go in as a new manager to a team that expects to win a World Series. You have a lot of work to do to earn the trust of those players in that clubhouse. Walt didn't have to do any of that. That trust was already there. It's also probably gone to another level in what has happened so far in this season and the way that he has run this team. He's ultra competitive. He runs the bullpen really well, which is one of the biggest challenges of being a manager. These guys know how competitive he is. He also knows there's a level of accountability. It's not a knock on Snit at all. We talk about Walt Weiss. It's just talking about kind of who he is, and there's always going to be something a little bit different about him. But there is a level of accountability and competitiveness that these guys have seen that you can't help but fall in line and respect your manager. We all had a lot of fun in what happened in that series in Anaheim when he ultimately ended up tackling Jorge Soler, who was the biggest man on the field at the time, in that little bench clear that we had. And that's kind of a moment, certainly, where guys know who he is, but they already kind of knew that anyway. They talked about it in spring training. They talked about it in the weight room that when they got there, Walt was already there, finishing up a workout and throwing around weights that most guys that wear the Braves uniform couldn't do. He's that kind of guy, but he also leads with a passion. He also has a lot of care in what he does, and he's aggressive with his moves, right? Whether it's a platoon move when he's going to pinch hit, whether he's going to go to his bullpen. He plays every game to win without burning this team out, which is a delicate balance that he's done very well.
That also speaks to the X factor. We always talk about certain teams just have something special behind the scenes. You've been part of special teams. When do you start to know, watching a team from the outside looking in, hey, there's something different in the wiring of this group of guys together?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you can see how they all kind of mesh. That's an easy one. One thing about the Atlanta Braves that they have done for decades here is that they're very careful about who they bring into their clubhouse. And they vet very heavily in who they bring into their clubhouse. So it helps with the team chemistry. So that exists already with the leadership group within the clubhouse, but even 1 through 26 and everybody that comes through the minor leagues or comes from throughout the organization. It's a very easy organization to step into and get a really good feel for what they're about. It is about just winning and being a good person and being a good teammate. They got that figured out. They've done it really well. I think on the field and what you have seen here is that there's been times, like, I'm calling games, I'm watching games, and you have a sense of how a game is going to go. And there's been a lot of times where we've walked away from a broadcast, the Braves have won, and you felt like, man, that felt like a game that they probably were going to lose, right? You're going to lose games, obviously. It's a 162-game season. But there have been these borderline games that could have gone either way, and it seems like most of them have gone the Braves' way. A lot of that has to do, again, with their bullpen and how dynamite that they have been. A lot of it has to do with what they've done offensively against other teams' bullpens from the seventh inning on. So there are times where you feel like a game is kind of over. It's a game that they're going to lose based on a situation, and they just seem to find ways to win. Now, over a course of 162, again, it's not going to happen all the time, but the thing that has kind of jumped out to me is you've walked away going, oh, they probably should have lost that game, but they ended up winning it, finding ways to win, and that goes back to what you did in spring training, doing all the little things right, executing when you have to, and this is baseball, and so that also means a little bit of luck once in a while.
I mean, Fitz brings up an X factor. No better X factor than Ronald Acuna Jr. Not just what he's done this season, but really what he's meant for the Braves in his entire tenure in Atlanta. You were a pitcher, professional pitcher. You pitched in Major League Baseball. You pitched overseas. Put your pitcher's hat back on for us. How in the world do you throw to Ronald Acuna Jr.?
Yeah, it's interesting because the issue you run into with him is that he's a leadoff hitter, but he's a leadoff hitter who's got tremendous power, right? So that means instant offense right away. That is the way the game has changed compared to when I was pitching. I broke in mid-'90s, pitched through most of the early 2000s in the big leagues. And a lot of times your leadoff hitters were going to be smaller guys that were getting on base. A lot of times your two-hole hitters were going to be guys that could get a guy over. When we've seen here generationally in baseball now and what has happened with this group, and Ronald is right there with them, is that you have to deal with a guy who, of course, can run. We know about the stolen bases over the course of his career, but not that he can just hit home runs, but he can hit a ball 450 feet with the best of them. And you got to deal with that from pitch one of a game. That's where this lineup becomes so dynamic, is that you're facing a guy like that. It runs really deep. Mauricio Dubon's having a great year. Matt Olson, you go up and down the line of how good guys have been so far this year. Dom Smith has played an unbelievable role on this team, but you don't get a breather. You don't get a chance to get settled in as a starting pitcher. That's the big one. And Ronald has been swinging a much better bat here lately. He's getting to the fastball a little bit more than he had been earlier in the season. And I will say this, I've been around a lot of guys over the course of my career, whether it was playing for those 19 years or broadcasting now for, I believe it's been 13 or so. I'm not sure anybody I've seen loves being on a baseball field more than Ronald Acuna Jr. That is his happy place. He wants to be there in right field. He wants to be in the batter's box, and he does not want to be anywhere else. That passion pours over into how productive of a player he is.
Something else that's changed over the years is the amount of availability for players. Like, load management is real for everybody, right? But we got Matt Olson here, 9th place on the Ironman list, 848 consecutive games. What stands out to you looking at that now, especially in the modern era of baseball?
It's a big deal. And when Walt Weiss first took the job here in spring training, one of the things that he had said, or even I should say in the offseason, he brought up the idea of exactly what you're talking about, load management and finding rest for guys. And so we started going through the roster, right? Ronald Acuna has had some knee issues, like trying to find off days for Ronald when I can, trying to find days for Ozzie Albies when I can, for Austin Riley, for Michael Harris, for others. The name he did not bring up was Matt Olson, because he knows that he will get in a fight. And listen, we know Walt can handle himself pretty well, but there would be somewhat of an argument if he tried to give Matt Olson a day off for rest. There was a couple of times where it's a foul ball. You see him kind of, wincing a little bit with his wrist, and you wonder, hey, could he use a day or two? And it's never happened. It's not only that he's out there, but it's the production that he's delivering during it. It's really appreciated by the entire game, because this is a completely different game, and you never want to take anything away from any player from previous generations. But this is the hardest generation to hit in by far. Matt Olson continues to put up these huge numbers. He's the best defensive first baseman I've ever watched in person. It's incredible to see what he does on the field, right? It's not as if there's days where, hey, we're going to DH today and give him a day off of his feet. He is out there every single day playing first base, and he makes it look like it's easy. It's not easy, but it seems like it comes easy to him. So I would say that around the game, not just what we get to see here from the Braves side, but around the game, the fact that he has been out there and producing at the level in which he is producing is highly respected.
I mean, one of the reasons why it's never been harder than it is right now for a Major League batter is because of the quality of pitching that we have in Major League Baseball. I mean, we see the Miz throwing 103, 104 and doesn't even break a sweat while doing it, which is so fun to watch, one. But on the other side, it's brings up a concern for maybe the durability and longevity of modern pitchers. As somebody who was a Major League pitcher, should we be more concerned about the development and the longevity of pitchers that we're seeing now in Major League Baseball?
Sure. The concern is real. The question is, what do you do about it, right? Everybody seems to have an answer or an idea of why we're dealing with all of these injuries. And there's talk of, like, could you get guys to back off? Good luck telling Jacob Mizorowski, like, we'd prefer to see you at 98, 99, right? It's just not going to work, right? The competitive factor is real. And so you have to figure out ways. The one thing I've noticed that this year in particular, there's always, we go through these waves of different types of injuries. What we're dealing with right now, we keep hearing about loose bodies or bone chips, right? It happened here with Spencer Schwellenbach. It happened with Hurston Waldrop. It's happened with Hunter Green. Tarek Skubal's going through it right now and recovering pretty quickly. And when you notice about all of those guys, it's as the velocity ticks up, all of a sudden there seems to be a bone chip that starts floating around in your elbow. Okay, and it's not going to be the same for everybody, but that has been kind of this latest trend in how you deal with it. So in the chase for velocity, it starts at a much earlier age than just when you're a professional. It starts, when these kids are 12, 13, 14 years old and they're trying to play catch up and maybe they're doing some things a little bit too aggressively. It eventually does get to you. The other factor that happens here that's going to be an interesting conversation here for a while is, what do you do about the Hall of Fame? Because we are going to get more and more pitchers that have dominated over a shorter period of time, but haven't put the longer careers together like we look for. Like the idea of 300 wins, I know Justin Verlander's still trying to get there. We may never see it again. If he gets there, he's probably going to be the last one to make that happen, right? 3,000 strikeouts, the big numbers that we look for what we call instant or automatic Hall of Famers are going away really fast. So as we get to these next generation of players that are going to get in that seem like they should be Hall of Famers, you're going to look back at other ones like David Cone is a name I bring up often and say, man, what are we going to do about David Cone? Like, you look at his numbers compared to others, he probably should be in the Hall of Fame compared to some of these guys that are going to start going in over the next decade or so. So it creates all kinds of problems. The biggest one, of course, for baseball is keeping their stars on the field. But the idea of trying to get guys to dial it back a little bit so they can think about longevity, it's just not a reality. Jacob deGrom has talked about that. Well, he talks about that after he's had a lot of success, has gone through a lot of injuries, and has a bigger contract where maybe he can afford to try to pitch at 96, 97 and try to stay healthy. But it is a really difficult thing to do, to tell competitors to take their foot off the gas a little bit in the name of longevity.
Yeah, damned if you do and damned if you don't, too, because you'll have complaints about injuries, but also then complaints about analytics and pitch counts in all of these games. So it's like, you just can't win no matter what happens. You can win by checking out CJ on Braves Vision all season long. Also follow him on social media at CJ Nitkowski. CJ, really appreciate your time and your expertise, man. You got to come hang out with us again as the season goes on. We really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Good talking with you guys.
It's great stuff
Thanks,
from
CJ.
CJ on a great season for Atlanta so far. Coming up next, a great series, but the real question is, who's actually America's team in this one? We'll break it down.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space, hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
My take on college football is it's always a regular season sport to me. It will always be a regular season sport. That is the beauty of college football. And we've put too much emphasis on the playoff, that taking this playoff and expanding it, you take what college football is and you dilute it. And you take that regular season and you're going to have load management in college football late in the year. Like, you don't want that. I think the people pushing for this are not the people who care about the well-being of this sport and appreciate college football for what it is.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Gonna send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam. Williams on the run. Inside the 20, breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
Oh, Elmo sparked some debate. He just said he wanted everybody to have a good time, and all of a sudden, fans in New York remind him where he's from. It has gotten heated in an absolute electric NBA Finals series so far. When even Elmo is caught in the middle of it, that's when you know, Caroline. Only this show can bring in Elmo. Elmo hopes both teams have fun. All right, so the question is, as both teams have fun, it's amazing. Sports fans, and Twitter was undefeated in reaction to this one. Where is America on this series to you? Is America pro Knicks or pro Spurs and Wemby right now?
I think this is Knicks Nation. I just get the feeling, I get the vibe. I was at a wedding over the weekend with people from all over the country, and it felt like unanimous support behind the New York Knicks, which is crazy because normally when it's big, bad New York or big time, big market and big city versus a smaller market of young players, almost always America is behind that small market city or small market team because it feels like the underdog. In a weird way, the Knicks feel like the underdog in this one. The Knicks feel like the plucky team that came out of nowhere that nobody believed in. And it's weird. It's the Knicks. It's New York City. Yeah, that feels like they're playing that underdog role. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One, the Knicks are such a passionate fan base that have been just void of success for so long. The Knicks haven't won a championship in either of our lifetimes. I was 1 year old when the Knicks made the finals the last time before this. So it just feels like this city that loves this team so much. They're so passionate. They've been so bad for so long, and finally they're here. And I also think the way that the city has reacted and adopted the Knicks, that everyone is so passionate. Everyone's been having so much fun enjoying the Knicks' success that it's almost intoxicating that everybody kind of wants a slice of that. So weirdly enough, in a big market versus small market matchup, I do feel like America is galvanizing behind New York.
Yeah, and to me, it's amazing. I stumbled into a sports bar in Orlando, so no affiliation with anybody, and it was packed. It was wall to wall. Every single seat was taken. It was standing room only. Everybody's crammed in. Everybody's watching the NBA Finals. Actually, weirdly, the Larry O'Brien Trophy happened to be there. Wild. I don't know how I stumbled into this, right? But yeah, it's a Disney thing apparently. So I walk in to this epicenter of everything in Orlando, and I was stunned as the entire bar, I mean, thousands of people in this thing, were just screaming at the top of their lungs for the Knicks at every turn. And I was stunned because I guess I thought Wemby created more of that sort of juice for the positive. I don't think people are rooting against Wemby, but there seems to be some magic, especially right now, whether it's the way the Garden felt. Like, how many people that don't even like sports wanted to tune into the beginning of Game 3 just to see what a Madison Square Garden environment was going to be like, just to see who was going to be there, who's sitting courtside, just to watch Ben Stiller become a fan the way so many people are fans of Ben Stiller, to see Ben Stiller crouching down trying to get the right phone angle so he can get a picture of Wemby. It's just all of these things hit, and then you see the celebrations in the street. Like, when is the last time there was a national uproar about the inability to have a watch party outside of an arena? We usually don't care. Nobody's going to sit there and say, oh, they can't have a watch party. But for the Knicks, we cared. Oh, we cared greatly. There's just this connection that we see between the Knicks and their Knicks fan base. There's a connection between Madison Square Garden. There's a connection between all the brands. And that connection seems to have connected with people all across the country. It's surprising to me. I would have thought that there'd be this big Wemby moment that maybe even takes down. And it does feel like these are both heroes. This is good guy v. good guy. I don't think that there's a real villain in this series so far. But I'm with you. I feel like America is rooting for the Knicks. Now, it does surprise me, with that being said, we talked earlier in the show, Wemby's had a couple of moments that have been, let's say, controversial. He's had a few big, let's say, hits maybe. Could have been flagrants. And we all look at it like, oh, that's awesome.
Should have been.
Like, there are plenty of players that do the same sort of, I'm just going to take Jalen Brunson by the back of his head and shove him to the ground moments. We would have been told, oh, my God, can't root for that guy. He's terrible. It's funny to me that even in this, it just turns into more hero versus hero, no villain v. villain.
And I don't know what that is with Wemby just hasn't been at the mountaintop long enough because just you wait. When somebody is good enough for long enough, you just inherently become a villain. So if Wemby becomes the next one that you have to get through in order to win a Larry O'Brien, then he will become the villain, especially if he's continuing to grab Jalen Brunson by the neck and throw him to the ground and dodging the media after a bad game. Now, I think right now it's just we just feel honored and privileged to watch somebody like Wemby do something that we've never seen before in the NBA. Be as active and as great of a shooter as he is at his size. Like he's an alien. He's a unicorn. How many times do we have to say it? So I think just the basketball and the sports world in general are just enamored by what we're seeing with Victor Wembanyama. And Wemby has this persona and this dedication and this emotion that I think people really appreciate, really resonate with. There was a time there where I felt like the NBA was getting into kind of a critical point because their players just did not care enough. That nobody turned it on until the postseason. Nobody cared about the All-Star game. Nobody cared about a random game in Sacramento in January. But Wemby does. So it's refreshing and people resonate with that. I also think the other thing that I think maybe people are really, appreciating with the Knicks, which is why they're kind of galvanizing behind the Knicks. You look at San Antonio with Victor Wembanyama, the biggest cheat code in the sport. You have Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, all of these, high first round picks that the Spurs have collected over the last couple of years, that they've done the rebuild thing, and now they're just a treasure trove of young talent. Versus the Knicks, and it's the power of friendship that it's really fueled them to get here. Jalen Brunson was the undersized underdog that nobody wanted to pay except the Knicks. It just feels like this, ragtag group of players, even though, they traded for Cat, they traded all those first round picks for Mikal Bridges, but still, it just feels like this ragtag bunch that all loves each other and they've all, supported each other. And it's really been not, high first round picks, but the power of friendship that have gotten them there. And I do think that people kind of like that story.
It is interesting. Like we've seen violent play from Wemby, and everybody has said, "Oh my God, I love his competitiveness." We've seen Brunson, as we talked about, who don't at me, Knicks fans. He's been absolutely incredible. We've talked about Clutch. I'm the one that said he could be the greatest New York athlete of all time. Everybody, calm down. Has as many turnovers as assists in this series, right? Like we talked about his inefficiency shooting the basketball. We've almost apologized for some of the negative storylines in this. And to your point, as you were discussing some of the things that we talk about all year long, they don't matter anymore. Like Wemby versus the Knicks, the Spurs versus the Knicks has taken away the conversation about tanking. It's taken away the conversation about flopping. It's taken away the conversation about anything. Like nobody is sitting here today, at least in my mentions that I'm seeing, saying, I can't stand modern basketball. No, we're all sitting here saying, oh my God, this is incredible. So it's funny because as I've said many times throughout the course of the playoffs, if tanking gets us to where we are right now, I don't care. I don't think tanking is really that big a deal. But in the grand scheme of things, these two brands, these two entities, whether it's Wemby or the Spurs, and it's versus the Knicks, they've erased all of the negative talk. As I watched Adam Silver sit on the panel before the game last night, and I'm watching everybody talk to him, and one of the questions he was asked is, what do you hate more, tanking or flopping? And he said, well, we fixed tanking. All I kept thinking is, who cares about either right now? We can argue about that too. But like this series has been so good that every single negative storyline in the NBA has just been washed away. Like we talk about the negative because the NBA season's just long and we're waiting to get to this. And when you get to this, all the other junk is worth it.
1000%. We've really said that from the jump. Like, I don't care about the Sacramento Kings. I don't care about the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't care about teams that are benching their healthy starters late in the season because they want a more advantageous draft pick. I don't care. The same way that I don't really care about the Atlanta Falcons and I don't really care about the New York Jets because those are bad teams that nobody cares about. You know who I care about? the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets and the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs and the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Boston Celtics and the Detroit Pistons, because those are actual good teams that are fun to watch with superstars that can take games over, the same way that we all love to watch the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks and the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think this is an NBA thing. I think this is just a sports thing. Nobody really cares about the bad teams. So stop making it such a massive headline and start focusing on the actual good teams and two teams that have done it in two different ways, right? The Knicks traded and signed players in free agency. That's one way to get good. The Spurs were just bad enough and lucky enough at the right times to get a Victor Wembanyama and a Stephon Castle and a Dylan Harper and have supplemented that young core. Those are the two paths to winning championships. I don't want to talk about the Kings anymore. I want to talk about Wemby and I want to talk about the Knicks.
And if you have to be the Kings to try and become the Spurs, great. If you have to be irrelevant and bad to get to the point like OKC was for many years to get to the point where OKC is now, it's all worth it. There's such a difference. Wemby's just different, right? Like the Knicks, I'm going to put the Knicks in their own category because the Knicks as a brand matters so much. Wemby is just different. And he's different because he plays the game differently than anyone's ever seen, because he looks different in the process from doing it, because he cares so much. Like, it is amazing how likability makes passion suddenly different, right? Like, at the same level of passion, if Draymond plays with the same level of passion as Wemby, everybody's like, oh my God, Draymond's dirty. But when Wemby plays with that passion, it's like, oh my God, he's got the fire we haven't seen since Kobe, right? Like, when you love a player, that's what we do, right? Like, but that is what Wemby has become. He's this sensation. He is this, it just hits different. There's a likability, and you earn benefit of the doubt when, frankly, people like you. Wemby is so likable that I think that's a huge part of why this series has captivated America.
And I think the difference between Draymond and Kobe is because Wemby has that Kobe fire. He has that Kobe, nothing is good enough. He has that Kobe relentlessness, where Draymond's just kind of a crybaby. Like, Draymond is just like, we're all tired of hearing Draymond's whining. And while, Wemby has that kind of edge, that kind of physicality, at the end of the day, it's still dripping in that Kobe relentlessness for greatness. Now, I do think time matters. Over time, if Wemby starts to become, more physical, dodges the media more, does all of those things that we have fairly on this show criticized Wemby for, then maybe it's different. But we only have 3 years of the Victor Wembanyama experience. He's only 22 years old. How will we talk about Wemby when he's 30? And fingers crossed, I hope he's still playing at a very high level at the NBA at that point. Maybe we're singing a different tune. But it's his passion and his love for basketball that I think is so likable.
Also likable, the Stanley Cup Final. It might be the single greatest Stanley Cup Final we've ever seen already, and we're only 3 games in. We'll preview it with the great Greg Wyshynski next.
What about the pre-fight talk? Do you feel like there should be a line?
I mean, can we look at it like comedy? I think that would be awesome.
You think that would be better? Even
well,
if you're talking about moms and stuff.
I mean, that sucks if someone did, Like,
yeah. Okay.
I think, like, building up to it, like, if you and I were standing across from each other and we were going to fight, you'd probably say a bunch of stuff you really don't mean. You kind of let it go after 5 rounds in a ring with someone.
I mean, yeah, everyone loves to bring up all the pressure and tell me about the pressure. And I'm used to it. Like, I've lived like this for quite some time now. For me, I just try to do my best to live in the moment. I wouldn't trade what I do for the world. So this is exactly where I want to be. And I just try to take it head on and enjoy every experience. I got a wonderful team and family behind me. And that's all that really matters.
What did you learn about LeBron when you were out there on the golf course with him?
I learned he's just like the rest of us out on the golf course. He loves the game. He caught the bug somewhere along the line, and just like all of us, all he wants to do is play golf. I think Bronny's probably a little ahead of him in his game, and I think that's probably messing with him a little bit. I think he can't wait to maybe even the playing field there. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about equipment. He's just like every other guy, kind of working all week to be able to play golf on the weekend.
Orlando, 1 timeout left, but the game comes down to this right here. 4 feet away from the goal line in the win. It's DeLorme to throw, near side, pass caught over the wall.
That's a touchdown.
He caught it over the wall.
Touchdown from
Touchdown, Orlando. A walk-off win. As dramatic of a finish as you will ever find, and a walk-off for the Pirates.
Wow, what a finish in Orlando.
This series will have 25 goals scored in the first 3 games. Only other Stanley Cup final with 25-plus goals in the first 3 games. You see them listed there. It is a rarity. It doesn't happen often. It hasn't happened in a long time, and we are seeing something epic right now. We'll be joined now from The Drop, Greg Wyshynski. You can follow, they follow each game of the Stanley Cup final on the NHL, on ESPN YouTube, on the ESPN app, everywhere. Wish, appreciate your time, man. When I say greatest, as you came in, I said that this was the greatest Stanley Cup final ever. Am I right?
So far, I mean, we'll see how it ends. It could be like 2 7-0 games to end the series, and then we're all like, what were we talking about as far as it being one of the best of all time? But I mean, for sheer drama, for the gameplay, for the swings and momentum, for the history that was made in Game 3, and so far as, you know, Mitch Marner with the fastest natural hat trick we've ever seen, Carolina's rally. Like, this series has been easily one of the best I've ever covered, and I would venture to say that Game 3 of the series, with the 4-0 lead, with the rally, with the double overtime, the freaky goal, might have been the best Stanley Cup final game I've ever covered. That thing was an absolute. I needed a cigarette afterwards, and I don't even smoke. Like, that's how good that game was.
You're not alone in that. And I feel so validated hearing you say that, because I feel like I have a tendency to do like the Bachelor thing of like, in the most shocking season yet. I do that with every championship series, but this one really has felt like one of the best Stanley Cup finals that I have ever watched. But for now, I want you to sit in the seat of Rod Brind'Amour. Frederik Andersen, we saw, got pulled after he gave up 4 goals in Game 3. We saw Brandon Bussie come in. He had a great close to that game, even in a losing effort. You're Rod Brind'Amour. Who starts in net?
Well, if I'm Rod Brind'Amour, I know I'm putting Freddie Andersen back in, because that's my guy. That's who brought us here. That's a veteran who, you know, you trust in a situation like this. If I'm not Rod Brind'Amour, if I'm a logically thinking hockey writer who's right more than he's wrong, I'm putting in Brandon Bussie. On the best case scenario for Bussie, who played really well, I thought, when he came in for Andersen in Game 3, the best case scenario is that you get lightning in a bottle. I mean, this guy was really good for them during the regular season. The players have trust in this guy. If he plays well in Game 4, guess what? Maybe you've changed the momentum of this series a little bit and found a fresher alternative in goal. On the worst case scenario, he flops in Game 4, and you're able to run back Freddie Andersen at home in Game 5 with the rest that he probably needs to reset a little bit. His numbers from the conference final to now aren't good. They just aren't. And you could see him moving a little bit more slowly. You could see that he's mentally a little taxed with how much pressure the Golden Knights put on him. He took a whack to the head in Game 3 too. So, like, I think giving him a break is smart at this point, which I know is crazy because Carolina's played, like, almost the minimum number of games in the playoffs. But Bussie in 4, and then Andersen in 5 if you need a Hail Mary in a 3-1 series is how I'd go.
Mitch Marner, I think Toronto fans are going to need therapy forever. They didn't get this version. He's giving this version now. What changed, and does it change the way we'll see his career?
Oh, easily. He's going to be a Conn Smythe winner if they win the Cup. I don't think there's anybody who's even in the conversation with him. Maybe Shea Theodore if he has a few more heroic moments in the final. But you got to remember, it's the writers that vote on the playoff MVP award, and I don't think they're missing an opportunity to make Mitch Marner the playoff MVP for the sheer content it'll drive. Look, I think the change for Mitch is that he has been able to just play freely. I think he's changed the way he plays in the playoffs. He's definitely going to more of the tougher areas and the dirtier areas on the ice than he did with Toronto, where he would be much more of a peripheral player, I thought, in the playoffs. But like from from a what's gone right for him perspective, what's gone right is that he doesn't feel the weight of being a kid who grew up a Leafs fan trying to help this franchise win its first Stanley Cup since 1967 and feeling like it's on his shoulders to do that. He walks into that Vegas room, he sees Jack Eichel with a ring, Mark Stone with a ring, William Karlsson with a ring, Shea Theodore with a ring, all these guys that can make plays and come up big in moments in which it's necessary, and Mitch not feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders anymore, and he's able to just kind of play hockey, and the end result is him leading all playoff scorers by a span of 8 points right now. It's been great.
So Toronto's not cursed.
No, Toronto's extremely cursed, but they're also a team that just shoots itself in the foot all the time too. But here's the thing though, like, and you guys have seen this before. I don't think he's doing this in Toronto. Like, people are just kind of like, where was this in Toronto? I'm like, it was never going to be like this in Toronto. Like, they simply don't have the pedigree. They don't have the players. They don't have the leadership group. He was part of a leadership group. He just kind of needed to join someone else's. So as much as like Leaf fans are probably, pissed off playing as well as he has, and I know they're pissed off at everybody kind of like taking their shots at Toronto through how well Marner has played. I think the realization is just like this was never going to happen in Toronto for him in the way that it has in Vegas.
Getting back to this series, we saw Braden McNabb get smacked in the face with a puck. He came back to game 3 with a cage on his helmet. How vital is he to the Golden Knights defense?
Well, it's funny, like, guy gets his face smashed by an 87 mile per hour puck, goes to the hospital, comes back and plays in game 3. And that's like the 8th most interesting thing that happened in game 3, just to like put a bow around how crazy that game was. He had the assist on the game winning goal, and it wasn't even like that big of a deal. He's extremely important. If you remember game 2 of the series when he got injured, Carolina gets back in that game and then eventually wins that game on the power play. And McNabb was not there for either of those power play goals. Extremely important penalty killer for them. And I think that, his partnership with Shea Theodore is easily their best defensive pairing. So getting him back in as quickly as they did, 1, kind of miraculous, but that's what hockey players do. And then 2, vitally important for how effective their blue line is against that Carolina attack.
I was lucky enough to be in the room covering the Preds on their Stanley Cup final run when Ryan Ellis came back from injury, unprecedented in game 6, and the arena went nuts. I watched the introduction of McNabb, and I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you couldn't even hear the PA announcer announce him. It's just what that meant for him and for that team and for that fan base. All right. Difficult conversation, but I think one that's important with this Stanley Cup final comes around Carter Hart. And Carter Hart's the goalie for Vegas. As many people know, he and 4 other teammates with Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team were found not guilty of sexual assault by an Ontario Superior Court judge in July 2025. We heard the chants, no means no. Carolina fans have been loud about this. Hockey fans have been loud about this. I don't know the right way to cover it. So I just want to throw it to you because this is a situation where a judge ruled the prosecution failed to prove its case, and the judge ruled that the accuser's evidence was not credible nor reliable. So you've got a couple of guys from this group that have now been put back out in the ability to go back out. Like, they were found not guilty. But then there are a lot of hockey fans that think it's a disgrace that they're allowed to skate. How do you cover something when somebody has been found not guilty, but also it's just a tough look for everybody?
Well, the covering something is the easy part for me, because all you have to do is make sure that you mention the context. And the context is that, this guy was on trial for sexual assault. The result was what it was. The league determined that he could play again. The Golden Knights signed him, knowing that there was going to be backlash from within their community, and there was. And so for me, my responsibility is to make sure that backstory is as prevalent as any stat or any accomplishment that Carter Hart has in these playoffs. And, I'll leave the redemption arc stuff to someone else. I think that trying to portray it as Carter Hart's gone through adversity isn't necessarily fair to anyone that went through this. So, that could be someone else's story to write. As far as Hart goes, I mean, everyone can kind of go back and look at the testimony and make their own determination as to how he handled himself in the trial. But I think it's also important when we talk about the story that came out in this final of the Carolina fans chanting "No means no." No one's hands are clean here. Like, the Carolina Hurricanes signed one of the Hockey Canada guys to be on their AHL team. They wanted to sign Carter Hart, according to media reports at the time. They tried to sign Michael McLeod, who was part of that trial, and the backlash was so severe that they didn't. So I mean, it's not as if there is a reality in the multiverse where Carter Hart is a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. So it's not as stark of a divide as I think some people would like it to be. When it comes to trying to bring this Hockey Canada stuff into the zeitgeist of the series.
I just quickly, part of the hard part for me is that, like, look at a different sport, the NFL. Michael Vick goes to prison, comes out of prison, has the opportunity to earn again because he did his time. If you're found not guilty, I don't know what else everybody else can do. I mean, I don't know how the NHL can turn around and suddenly do anything differently in this situation other than say, hey, if a court decides that that this testimony isn't reliable, I can't prevent you from having the opportunity to live at this point. Like, I just don't know what other choice the league had in this situation. Maybe I'm missing something, Wish. Like, you're smarter than I am. I just don't know what other choice they had.
I mean, no, that's a fair point. I mean, and these guys weren't able to play during the trial, so I think from the league perspective, they've serve some level of penance for their actions. But again, if the league clears them and teams are able to sign them, then that's just gonna. I mean, every team's gonna make their own decision based on what the backlash is going to end up being. And Vegas obviously is a team that truly does not care what anybody thinks about what they do. By the way, sorry that the lighting in here all of a sudden made me look like I'm in the witness protection program. I think the sun finally hit my room and things went a little wonky. I feel like
that's what happens when you're in Vegas.
It's weird talking about the Carter Hart situation and having that happen. It feels like I should be using like a voice disguiser right now with the way the lighting went, but it's the way it works.
It's great stuff as always. You guys can check out The Drop. It comes out after the games throughout the Stanley Cup Final. Follow him on social media at Wyshynski. Greg, always appreciate you, my friend. Enjoy Vegas. Don't let Vegas take you down, brother. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
It hasn't so far. I have a feeling I'll be back here for a Game 6, but that's we'll see how that goes.
Oh,
I hope
God,
so.
I hope so. I might be there with you. All right, great stuff from Wish as always. We'll keep breaking down the Stanley Cup Final as it goes on. Going to be an epic final throughout the course of it. Coming up next, reports out that Giannis wants to go to Miami. We'll tell you about it.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the three, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Demond Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
Honestly, do you think you could have continued? Do you think if there was a minute left in the fight, you would have been okay? Meaning, sorry, a minute left in the round, not the end of the round.
So if you look back at it, I got the uppercut. No, for the people that know my fights, I've been dropped multiple times in different type of fights, in championship fights. And what I do is I get back up, and no matter how much time is left on the clock, I get back up and I end up winning.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
Brian Windhorst believes Giannis wants to be in Miami. The team to watch here is Miami. Miami would say, we got Tyler Hero, who's a young player and been an all-star. We got draft picks, including the 13th pick in this year's draft. Giannis, I think, wants to be in Miami. So what do we make of this, Caroline? We buying Giannis to the Heat as a great option here?
Okay, well, first of all, how many preferred destinations does Giannis have? Because I'm old enough to remember when it was the Knicks. And then when it wasn't the Knicks, it was the Celtics. And now, wait, no. Now it's Miami. Make up your mind, Giannis. I don't hate this because I feel like the pushback to any potential Giannis mock trade was always, that's not enough. That's not a trade that Milwaukee's going to say yes to. If you're trading for Giannis, you need a whole treasure trove. Of course, that has changed. I think the narrative on that has changed just a little bit because it feels inevitable that Giannis is going to be out of Milwaukee. So maybe the asking price has lowered a little bit. But this does feel like a return that would feel, good enough from Milwaukee. You get Tyler Hero. They have a bunch of picks. They have a lottery pick coming up. So I can see that being, advantageous from Milwaukee. Miami gets the spark plug that they really need. And Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't think Jaylen Brown for Giannis is going to happen. Obviously, that would be a better return, I think. But the Celtics have kind of come out and said, Brian Windhorst has reported that they don't want to separate Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which I would agree with. You want a championship with those guys. You have one down year. Try running it back again. We've heard a lot of Chet for Giannis fodder, and the Oklahoma City Thunder have come out and said, no, we're not going to disrupt our core, which I also think is a smart idea. Yeah, there's no reason. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You lose in Game 7 of the Western Conference Final. I don't think that necessarily all of a sudden warrants blowing up a team that looked like it was on the brink of a dynasty. So this does, I think, Tyler Hero for a bunch of picks does make sense for Milwaukee.
Yeah, look, Tyler, I can be your hero, baby. It's fine. It's fine. Like, he's just going to go be fine in Milwaukee. And he's just not a big part of this to me. Because by the time Milwaukee's
who's going to be better?
Rebuild. Well, nobody, but I don't think the objective is to be better. I think if Milwaukee's getting rid of Giannis, their only objective should be to tank. Because they're not going to get enough in return that they can actually build around any of these players. So I just want as many picks as I can possibly get so that I can start the process of being so terrible that I can rebuild. And that just, to me, Tyler Hero is not going to make enough of a difference in it either way. I'd rather just get every pick known to man and a bunch of salary dumps I could just get rid of. Whatever it takes to make sure. And the 13th pick, that's fine. All of this just speaks to how the market has fallen on Giannis. It's one thing when we're having a conversation about Giannis Antetokounmpo and we're saying, should Milwaukee trade him for a handful of stars and all of it? No, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about Tyler Hero and the 13th pick in the draft. Like, what is that going to do for Milwaukee? It gets Giannis out the door, but I think all of this speaks to just where the market has fallen for Giannis. At this point, it's a little like you had the hot Pokemon for 1 minute, and now that market has crashed, and all of a sudden you're still stuck with the card and you're asking somebody to take it. That's how I feel like the Giannis trade value is gone. They're not going to get anything near in return that's going to make them competitive. So Tyler Hero's fine. And then the other side of this is the Heat would be looking at Giannis, Wiggins, Bam as their big three. Yeah. I just feel like we moved pieces around. Like, we built sort of a Lego castle, and it didn't look really good. And Caroline came in and was like, your castle looks kind of funky. I'm like, all right, rebuild it. So she took it, she rebuilt it. I don't really look all that less funky. It's just different. That is not going to win the East.
Yeah.
I mean, it wins the East if the Celtics are injured again and, don't take any step forward. And if Detroit crumbles under the pressure. And if all these things go wrong, then maybe it wins the East. But if your bucket plan is here, let's trade for Giannis so we can be the third best team in the East. It's just, what are we talking about? All of this speaks to just the mediocrity we're stuck. We are mired in mediocrity with the Giannis trade proposals.
That's 83-point game, Bam Adebayo, to you, Jason Fitz. Put some respect on his name. That's Asia Wilson's
Bam,
boyfriend to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bam.
If I could get Asia in the trade, I might be more excited. Go ahead.
1,000%. But yeah, I mean, Giannis, Wiggins, Bam. Is that better than the Boston Celtics? No. Is that better than this version of the New York Knicks? No. Is that better than Detroit? No. So already that puts you at best, fourth best in the East. But I keep going back to what's better. I don't think the Knicks are going to be trading for Giannis. I don't think so. I think that now we've seen enough from Cat, at least in the first two games of the NBA Finals. Like, the Knicks are going to run it back with this core, and I think that they should. OKC is going to run it back with their core, and I think that they should. The Boston Celtics are going to run it back with their core, and I think that they should. Those were the biggest names and the sexiest trade offers that really felt like were out there and maybe even possibly realistic for the Bucks. I don't think that those are realistic anymore. Too much has changed. So, and I keep going back to, okay, what team that is actually in a championship window is going to be trading for a 31, 32-year-old off to injured, granted, superstar that has played 8 of the last 16 Milwaukee postseason games? It just doesn't feel worth it at this point. So it does feel kind of, it feels like a plain bagel. It's good, but it's not the best. It's fine, but it's not my first choice. It's not a blueberry bagel. It's not an everything bagel. It's fine. We'll talk about it because it's Giannis, but it does not do what I think trading for Giannis maybe used to feel like. Trading for Giannis felt like that's a move that you make because you're trying to win a championship. This would feel like, okay, it's exciting and great and fun and all, and we're going to be talking about it, and it's going to make the Miami Heat much more interesting. It's going to make the Milwaukee Bucks significantly less interesting. But at the end of the day, what does it do? Does it push you over to a championship window? I don't think so. All of this just feels so much less sexy than it felt maybe at the NBA trade deadline in February.
I also continue to go back to seeing the Pauly Markets and Kalshis of the world yesterday, where all of a sudden social media is telling us, oh, Giannis to the Heat is now the leader in the clubhouse, which all feels really gross. I can no longer tell how much of the Giannis speculation has anything to do with where Giannis might actually go, and how much of it is just somebody somewhere leaking reports to move markets so that people can make money. As we sit here with Giannis being an investor in Kalshi, I think this is a fair and appropriate, just at least eyes wide open context to all of this. If I'm seeing these Pauly Markets move because of the rumor that he might be headed somewhere, it just makes me wonder how much of any of this is based in truth. How many people can we really trust? How many people do we think are truly tied in enough to know where Giannis is going to go in the upcoming season? So to your point, now I've got a couple of things. I've got to stack the fact that if you trade for Giannis, huzzah, you might be the 4th best team in your conference. Great, go raise that banner, right? On top of the fact that half these rumors may or may not be just here to try and increase the betting opportunities on these Pauly Markets that aren't held to the same constraints as other betting institutions. So how much of it is real and how much of it is just market movement? I don't even know. I feel like we're all just suckers here, like 5 steps behind in everything that's happening with Giannis, and we're just watching it because we're watching a circus show.
Which I hate, and that feels so icky. And maybe it doesn't have any fact. Like, maybe Giannis being an investor in Kalshi has nothing to do with this. Maybe it is totally and completely kosher and nobody is coloring outside of the lines. Maybe that's true. But the fact that there's at least a door for speculation feels so gross and so icky, especially coming off the heels of Brennan Sorsby and Texas Tech, and he can now play at Texas Tech even after he has bet on his own team in the past. Maybe it doesn't play any sort of impact in the outcome of the game, but we at least question it. And calling integrity into question into sports, I think, is sports league's number one concern. We can talk about tanking, we can talk about injuries, we can talk about flopping all day long, but integrity of the game is the one thing that should go untouched and untarnished. So I hate that we're even talking about this. I just feel, it makes me feel like I have to take a shower. I feel dirty talking about this.
Look, I don't think this is unique to Giannis. I think this is unique to the new culture that we live in. Every single piece of speculative news can move. It's no different than the stock market. If you start hearing sort of reports and rumors about something and you're like, ooh, I'm going to go in and buy or sell this stock right now. Like, these things can impact the way people trade actual things of value. So now when you have trade rumors in the NBA, where particularly people love the offseason drama and the speculation, all of these things, no doubt the impact of that is that it moves the odds and people are going to make money on it. So even if it has nothing to do with Giannis, I'm not sitting here saying Giannis is stacking coins like Scrooge McDuck in a back room trying to make extra money off of his own trade. I do think there are enough nefarious partners in the world that'll look at it and say, okay, if I can get this rumor to circulate on social media, it's going to jack the price up on this. I'll bet the other side of it, I'll make money. And that's all perfectly legal at this point. So it's part of the reason that I have skepticism for every one of these reports, because particularly in NBA, there are so many trade reports. The trade reports continue to move constantly on this stuff. It just makes me wonder. And then the other side of all of it, Caroline, is that to go back to how we started this whole thing, I just don't know that Giannis Antetokounmpo can be traded anywhere in the NBA that next year gives him a spectacular, oh my God, chance to win a championship. When you stack all that together, it just makes me out on the entire concept.
Do we think Giannis to the Cavs is dead?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think it pushes the Cavs over to a championship, because James Harden still has yet to be reminded that, he has to show up in postseason games, contrary to popular belief. And Giannis has been, over the last couple of years, largely unavailable in the postseason. So you have one guy that plays his worst basketball in the postseason and one guy that can't stay healthy. That's not necessarily a recipe for success or championships. But I do think that Giannis to Cleveland is still alive. I'm not willing to put that one to bed quite yet.
No, I don't put it to bed. I just think it results in the same mediocrity.
Doesn't
Huzzah!
do much.
Go raise your banner for being the third best team in the East, maybe the fourth best team in the East. Right now, every single NBA team should be, in my mind, deciding if they have a path to compete against the best of the best, or if they need to rip it down all the way to the studs. I think Cleveland and Milwaukee have one thing in common. I don't think either of them have any path that will get them to the best of the best. I don't think the Cavs have a path to get to the absolute same level as OKC and San Antonio. I don't think that the Cavs have the path to beat this version of the Knicks team. It doesn't exist. And the Bucks certainly don't have a path to that. So I don't think the two teams are dissimilar. Yeah, you can move Giannis over to the Cavs. Going to make a more interesting regular season. Going to sell a lot of tickets. That's sexy. But I don't think that at the end of the day, I don't think that actually results in a chip. So it all feels kind of useless to me.
How quickly the narrative has changed on Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's not that long ago we were talking about this is a championship move. It's not that long ago we were talking about the Bucks getting just an absolute haul in return for trading Giannis. Now all of it feels incredibly lackluster.
It doesn't feel lackluster. The Dodgers. The Dodgers always continue to crush it, and we will talk to one of their stars next. Kiké Hernandez is going to join us. I cannot wait for this.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space, hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
My take on college football is it's always a regular season sport to me. It will always be a regular season sport. That is the beauty of college football. And we've put too much emphasis on the playoff, that taking this playoff and expanding it, you take what college football is and you dilute it. And you take that regular season and you're going to have load management in college football late in the year. You don't want that. I think the people pushing for this are not the people who care about the well-being of this sport and appreciate college football for what it is.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Going to send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam.
He's
Williams
out of there.
on the run. Inside the 20. Breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
Miles Garrett threw out the first pitch at the Dodgers-Angels game. We're going to rate that form, but we're going to do it from somebody that should actually be qualified to do that. Dodgers super utility superstar Kiké Hernandez joins us. He's joining us on behalf of the AOA. You have a great story about your journey with eye health. We want to talk about that in a second. When you see famous people come in and throw the first pitch, though, look, Kiké, I was a musician for years. I can't imagine somebody walking up on stage before our show playing the national anthem terribly. When you see famous people come out and throw the first pitch, what's the reaction?
I mean, it's unbelievable how a simple act of throwing a baseball can make the greatest athletes in the world look extremely unathletic. But Miles did a great job. He threw some fuel because he threw that ball pretty hard, and he did all right. He did okay. I'm proud of him. I'm really happy he's in LA now, and hopefully they can do what we've been doing lately, which is winning championships.
I'm sure there's plenty of guys who'll stand behind home plate after the first pitch when you're catching them from kids and nuns and people who are not professional athletes. I would not be one that would volunteer to catch a first pitch from Miles Garrett. I don't want to be on the receiving end of anything from Miles Garrett. But I do want to talk about you. I know it's been a frustrating year for you injury-wise. How are you feeling? How's the recovery going? How are you feeling mentally?
I think I feel better than I'm supposed to feel, considering the severity of the injury. Feels like it's progressing quickly, which is a good thing. For me, I have a newborn, so being injured means a little more time at home. So being at home with the kids has been kind of numbing out the situation and making me not really think about it as much. So it's making the time go by a little bit faster, but yeah, there's not many things I love in this life more than playing baseball, and not being able to do it only for, I think I've played like 9 innings this year. It's been a first for sure, but I'm doing whatever it takes to be ready for the second half and help the team win in October.
We just have the image up here of Dave Roberts coming up to console you there. What did that moment mean? What did he say to you?
Man, honestly, where I was mentally at that time of the game, I don't really recall much of the conversation. I just, he was kind of telling me, it's May. If you don't feel good, it's not worth it. We need you in the long run. We don't need you right now in May. So he was kind of consoling me in that way. Me and Dave had gone through a lot. I've been playing for him since 2016, and we've won a lot of really big games. We've lost a lot of really big games. So together, and we kind of have that relationship where we feel for each other. And of course, me missing 2 months of the season because of an elbow injury that I played through last year, and coming back and only making it 9 innings, he felt the frustration, he felt the pain. So he was kind of consoling me and kind of trying to let me see the big picture, and letting me know, we need you in October. We didn't really need you right now, and just make sure you're healthy when we actually need you. So that was kind of the conversation, I believe. I'm not really sure.
You mentioned it, Dave. You've been with Dave Roberts for a decade. I think you're being humble. Yeah, you've won a lot of big baseball games with Dave Roberts. What's something about him that we don't know?
Do you guys know he has his own wine?
No.
I don't think I did know that.
He has his own wine. It's Red Stitch. It's pretty good wine. Yeah, Doc has he's learned a lot through these 10, 11 years that he's been managing the LA Dodgers. You've seen him grow into one of the best managers of all time. He's a guy that can, super energetic. Whenever you need a boost of energy, he's going to bring it. He's got good feel for whatever it is that the team needs at the time. And, guys like playing for him. And, he's a great guy, has a great family. And, that's kind of what you want out of a manager. So he's kind of the whole package.
When you can't be on the field with your teammates the way you want, how do you stay connected with this locker room and with this team and the journey and the marathon of a long baseball season?
Well, for me, it's learning from past experiences and not necessarily that apply like my own experiences, but you can always look around and apply teammates' experiences for you. And I've been around long enough to know that guys that are all sad and making things about them when they're hurt and things like that are not really guys that you want to be around. So for me, it's just showing up every day to the field and pretending that I'm active, pretending like I'm one of the guys, because at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's about the team. So if I can be that fun guy in the locker room and bring the energy in different ways, regardless of whether I'm on the active roster or not, then that's what guys are going to appreciate more, and that's what they need out of me. So for me, it's just not making it about myself and not letting everybody know that I might be going through tough times up here because of what's happening. But if you didn't know from the outside perspective what's going on, and you come into our locker room, you wouldn't be able to tell that I've had a pretty frustrating season as far as not being able to play and all that. But I want to be the same guy every single night, whether I'm 0 for 4, 4 for 4, whether I'm playing, not playing. And that's what I'm working on as a teammate right now, and that's what I'm bringing to the table.
It's been a frustrating season for you personally. And I can only imagine for the team, the amount of pressure that you all might feel, understanding that the expectation is World Series or bust. That's an expectation that you all have set. But I'm curious, does it feel different this season coming off of back-to-back World Series than maybe it felt just coming off of one?
I don't think so, personally. I think a lot of it has to do with the personnel that you have in the locker room. And I think, being a team that's on the older side, it's maybe when we get to September and October, we're a little more tired than we used to be. But at the same time, we are so seasoned and salty enough to understand that you can't really pay attention to the outside noise. You just got to worry about what's happening inside your locker room and trying to figure out a way to take care of business on the field. But for us, we have the mentality of, we're not trying to win 3 championships. We're just trying to win this year, which is the same mentality we have the previous 2 years. And, if you take it, because we can only win 1 championship this year, we can't win 3. So why worry about winning 3 when you only have to worry about winning 1, which is what's happening in the present moment. And for us, it's just, we're going to win this year. And if we win this year, it happens to be 3-peat. But, for now, we're not really worried about what happened the last 2 years, because everybody already knows that's history. And we're just focused on what's in front of us and ahead of us.
You're joining us on behalf of the AOA to talk about eye health. You dealt with vision issues in the 2024 season. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so 2024, I was having a pretty miserable first half to my season, and I was talking to a buddy of mine that's obviously in baseball too, and he mentioned to me, he's like, "Have you been to the eye doctor? Have you been to an optometrist?" And I was like, "No, man, I just had the eye test that we have in spring training, and I passed it with flying colors. Of course, I knew every letter that was on the board and things like that." And he was like, "No, man, you really need to go into an in-person eye doctor visit, and you need to, make sure that your vision is where it needs to be." Because he's like, I just went into an eye doctor, and he told me that I needed glasses, and I had no idea that I needed glasses. And then one of my other teammates, an outfielder, was having a really hard time catching the ball off the bat against left-handed batters, and that kind of resonated with me a little bit. So I was like, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. I'm gonna go to an optometrist and see what's going on. And sure enough, I had a astigmatism on my right eye, and I didn't even know. It was something that who knows how long I've been dealing with. And, playing this game long enough to where you can get by through certain things by just doing it for so long. And turned out that I wasn't really necessarily seeing the ball. I wasn't seeing the spin of the baseball, which is the most important thing in hitting, as far as like pitch recognition and strike zone recognition and all these things. And I was trying to survive by recognizing the shape of the pitch instead of seeing the way that the baseball was rotating. And sure enough, I started wearing glasses, and the first week was a little rough getting adjusted to the prescription, and our baseball lens is a little bit curved, so it gives you a little bit of a fishbowl effect. So if you're not used to it, it can be a little like throw off depth perception. But once I got used to it and I figured it out. My season took off, and I was able to, a couple of injuries here and there, and I was able to, get in the starting 11 in the postseason, and I had a really good postseason. And yeah, I mean, the glasses kind of saved my season, saved my career, and I'm just passing it along now. I had one of my teammates that was having a rough start to his season last year. I told him to go check his vision. Sure enough, needed glasses. Now he's one of the best hitters in baseball, and Max Muncy. So, I might not be a hitting coach, but whenever I see a guy struggling, I always recommend to go see an optometrist and go check their eyes and through an in-person eye exam. And it's worked so far with one of my teammates. So maybe some other of my teammates will listen to me when they're struggling, and hopefully they don't need glasses. But yeah, that's my role within the team now too.
Man, it's really beautiful. Like, more people need to just go get checked out. No matter what the issue, go get checked out. It's a great message, Kiké, man. We really appreciate you taking the time and being so honest about just your process and your journey. Best of luck this season. Can't wait to watch you get back on the field and see what the Dodgers can do, man. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
it's great
Kiké.
stuff from Kiké Hernandez, and love the message on that. Go see an optometrist. Do it. All right, coming up next, miles ahead, WNBA controversy already? We'll tell you about it.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space, hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
My take on college football is it's always a regular season sport to me. It will always be a regular season sport. That is the beauty of college football. And we've put too much emphasis on the playoff that taking this playoff and expanding it, you take what college football is and you dilute it. And you take that regular season and you're going to have load management in college football late in the year. Like, you don't want that. I think the people pushing for this are not the people who care about the well-being of this sport and appreciate college football for what it is.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Going to send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam.
He's
Williams
out of there.
on the run. Inside the 20. Breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
Olivia Miles is absolutely destroying it this season. 17.2 points per game, 5 rebounds a game, 6.4 assists per game. She would join Caitlin as the only rookies in W history to average 15, 5, and 5 should she make it through the entirety of the season. And it's interesting because there was a lot of conversation before the draft about who should go first. Now, that ended up not being Olivia. And the question is, now that she is out playing in the eyes of many, should she have been the first pick?
This is, I think, an unfair question because it was a really highly contested debate. Which one should it be? Should it be AZ Fed? Should it be Olivia Miles? So if we can have this debate, then it's probably really close, right? Would Olivia Miles be playing like this in Dallas? Maybe, but also maybe not. I mean, Dallas is bringing in a new coach. They're bringing in so many new pieces. Versus in Minnesota, they also are dealing with some turnover on the roster, but Cheryl Reeve is one of the most well-respected coaches, not just in women's basketball, but in basketball, period. Like, they've got a pretty good thing going in Minnesota. So I think that we can play revisionist history all day long and say that Olivia would have been the better pick, and Olivia has been outplaying AZ Fudd. Like, let's be honest. AZ hasn't been bad by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, she had 22 points against the big bad Las Vegas Aces. She had 24 out on the road at the New York Liberty, another team with championship expectations. Now, she's been kind of inconsistent to start, but isn't that to be expected from a rookie? Olivia Miles is special. Like, she just gets it. She's one of those players that didn't need a ramping up period in the WNBA. She came in and she just understood what was expected of her in the league. And the Lynx don't have Nafisa Collier back. So you think about how good this team can be once Fee comes back. Like, that terrifies me. But I'm not going to say that Olivia should have been the #1 overall pick. Not because she's hasn't been outplaying AZ Fudd, because she has. Not because Olivia Miles isn't great, because she is. I mean, she was Rookie of the Month for a reason in the month of May. She should have been. It should have been a unanimous Rookie of the Month in the month of May, because that's how electric Olivia Miles has been. But I'm not going to make one massive sweeping statement after just 1 month. Sonia Citron won Rookie of the Month in May last year. And I love Sonia Citron. She's a baller. And she's going to be the focal point for Washington moving forward. But I think that just goes to show, like, Sonia Citron was the Rookie of the Month in the month of May, but Paige Beckers was hands down the Rookie of the Year. So a lot can change. I'm not going to say that Dallas made a mistake.
No, look, it's way too early to say that. But this is just what we do in every sport. To W fans that might be frustrated by this type of content, I would just caution everybody, this is the norm. How many Bears fans still sit around and say, oh my God, we could have drafted Patrick Mahomes, and we didn't, without acknowledging that Patrick Mahomes goes to the Bears. He doesn't have the same coaching around him. He doesn't have the same players around him to help his development. He doesn't have any of the things around him that made Patrick Mahomes who Patrick Mahomes is. Your point on Olivia Miles going to Dallas is an important one, because we have no idea what that actually would look like on that team with that offense, with the way that they share the ball. We have no idea. We have no idea what we could have seen from Olivia Miles if she went #1 overall. But we also know this. In every single sport, we love to take 1v2. That's what we do. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the NBA, the NFL, in hockey. We take 1v2 and we always analyze it. Now, the problem is, we're barely into this thing. We're 10 games in and we want to make a sweeping generalization on who should go where. I don't think that's fair. Look, has AZ been disappointing? Yeah, I think it's reasonable to say that AZ has not necessarily been the dominant out the gates type of player that we're used to seeing early in the WNBA success. But this is sort of what we did to Caitlin, right? When Caitlin came in, if it wasn't day one, oh my God, that everybody freaked out. I think #1, we all need to relax a little bit. #2, let's see where we are by the end of the season, when everybody's had the chance to get their feet under them. One of the weirdest things about the W, particular to me, in the calendar, is that you barely get the opportunity to rest at all from the end of the NCAA tournament. And all of a sudden, boom, you're supposed to come in a shortened season and immediately be a superstar. I'd like to allow a bit more grace for growth in that process, Caroline. So do I think today it looks like Olivia Miles is going to be a better WNBA player than AZ Fudd? Yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make. Does that mean that we have to suddenly run around like Kermit the Frog in a total panic about whether or not the right pick was made or not? No, I think time is what it's going to take. And we may not know that for a year. It's just, welcome to coverage of the way we cover most major sports. We don't wait 2 weeks, nonetheless a year, to figure out whether or not a pick is a bust.
We do make very sweeping judgments all the time, no doubt. I think also important to point out, like, Olivia Miles is a point guard. She's a great passer. Just go back and look at some of the passes that she's, like, no-look passes that she's made near or under the rim. Like, she's one of the best passers that I have seen in recent memory in women's college basketball. AZ's more of a supplementary scorer, and I don't think that's, a knock on AZ. That's kind of what she's been. She's a great shooter. She's a great scorer. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that over the next 10 years, and I hope that AZ does have a very long and successful WNBA career, that she is more of a secondary scorer, that she's maybe more of a role player than she is a focal point of an organization. I could see Olivia Miles being the focal point of an organization, whether that's in Minnesota or elsewhere. Dallas didn't need a point guard. Paige is their point guard. They needed a shooter. They needed a lot. They needed size. They needed shooting. They needed scoring. And that's what they got in AZ Fudd. And has she delivered based off of expectation of being the #1 overall pick? So far, no. We're also 10 games in. And the expectations for number 1 overall picks has absolutely skyrocketed, coming off the heels of Aaliyah Boston being the number 1 overall pick, and then Caitlin Clark being the number 1 overall pick, and then Paige Beckers being the number 1 overall pick. I mean, we're talking about probable future Hall of Famers here, and all of those former number 1 overall picks. I think we just need to allow AZ a little bit of time to acclimate into the league. Let's also point out, Dallas is a top 5 team in the league right now. So even if AZ hasn't delivered in the super sexy half-court shots, averaging 25 points a game, the maybe sky-high expectations that she has had, let's also admit and acknowledge that Dallas is still in a place that they want to be. Now, Minnesota is the number 1 team in the league. They look unbeatable. They're the best defensive team in the league. Olivia Miles has been absolutely electric. I do not deny that, and I acknowledge that 100%. Like, I think the Lynx might be the scariest team in the league when Svi comes back. But also, like, Dallas is coming off the heels of having the number 1 overall pick again. They had a coaching change, you know? But I think both of these teams are just in different positions right now. But I do love Olivia.
And
I love Olivia
look,
Miles.
who don't like Olivia? I think that's part of this too. Like, what did we say earlier about the NBA? Likability buys you so much benefit of the doubt, right? You can shove somebody to the ground, and if you're likable, everybody's like, oh, he's just got fire, he's got passion, right? Like, Olivia Miles is one of the most fun, and has become, over the course of her transcendent rise during the NCAA tournament, she became one of those, oh my God, must-watch players. There's something about her that has an entertainment factor. She has it, whatever that it thing is. Everybody wants to watch. So I do think that that's part of why we're falling in love immediately with this pick, because she's having great success. She's got it factor. It's fun to watch. And she's on a team right now that, you're right, looks like they're going to be a wagon. Like, look, I continually say, and I will always die on the hill of, I will count Vegas out when Vegas is eliminated. Until that day, I'm not counting Vegas out. But you can't take away from the fact that the Lynx look like an absolute beast in this year's W. We'll see what that looks like in the playoffs. But certainly that has to be part of this Olivia conversation. Minnesota looking as good as it does is a big piece of it. Speaking of looking good, by the way, we have to make sure we show everybody this amazing moment. We said her name, but we got to show the moment with some great video. Just vibes here. Caitlin Clark, look at this game winner. Look at this. The game winner. Up, whoop, just like that. From 75, 76 to 78, 76. Caitlin doing Kate. I don't know how you leave her that open. I don't know how she finds a way.
Did she just do a Brunson? Did she just do the Brunson celebration, or does she do that all the time?
I couldn't see from the tiny screen on there. She's doing that.
Brunson.
Yeah, there we go.
There was a little bit of a Brunson there. Like, it's so good to see Caitlin kind of get her lick back. The last couple of games, in 3 of her last 4 games, she's hit sub 30 from the field. She was in a little bit of a slump. It happens. It's early in the season. Remember, everybody, we're less than a quarter into the season. It's so early, but it is so fun to see Caitlin Clark do what she does best. Those clutch shots, half-court shots that look like, how in the world did she just make that? Because that angle doesn't look natural by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just what she does. And it's the reason why she is, one of the faces of the league, is because she can do things like that. And it's great to see her and the Fever kind of get some positive PR, because there hasn't been a whole lot of that recently.
You're right. I also think these moments are important for the W. Look, whether you love or hate Caitlin, you watch Caitlin. Not you particularly, but the audience, right? Like, whether you love her or hate her, you watch her. And at some point, you'll stop watching her if she doesn't continually show her greatness. So whether you're hate watching or whether you're love watching, either way, you're watching. And Caitlin has to continue to do these sorts of things, because that's what keeps everybody mesmerized. There's going to be a whole group of audience that says, it's overrated, who cares? And then there's going to be a whole group of audience that says, oh my God, look at Caitlin. How does that, right? So either way, it's a win, because all of the eyeballs count. And the one thing that is consistent is whether people have a positive or negative opinion one way or the other. I absolutely hate wading in the waters of Caitlin Clark at times, because everybody has to turn it into something else. But the fact is, all you have to do is see moments like this, and you're reminded of the power of Caitlin, because no matter what, when she continues to win games, people will continue to gravitate to her to express their opinions one way or the other. We'll keep expressing opinions. We'll have plenty more to say. We've got the Stanley Cup Final back in action tonight, plus plenty of NBA preview action to come tomorrow as we continue to break it all down. We'll be back right here at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. This is Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back, watch us again tomorrow. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.